Okay, I'm excited to share with you today. So let's get started. I want to talk about what I did the previous weekend in Kluang. Okay. What I did was last week I just returned from Trans CBR trek. Okay. So this is a trek. Let me share my screen with you. So the topic today is made whole in the mountains, and you will understand the topic as I share. So the Trans CBR hike is climbing 3 peaks. Okay, Chamendong, Belumut, and Rimau. Distance is supposed to be about 25 kilometers, 2,300 meters elevation gain, and you're supposed to take at least 14 hours. Okay. Now, there's no official registry tracking how many people have completed the Trans Chamendong, Belumut, Rimau traverse. However, based on local hiking communities, only a selected few dozen elite trail runners and highly experienced mountaineers have successfully finished this traverse under 14 hours. And the reason so few achieve this timeline comes down to the intense nature of the route. The elevation is brutal. The traverse includes approximately 2,300 meters of elevation gain across rough, raw terrain. Okay. And typically standard expeditions generally budget 20 plus hours or do it over 2 or 3 days, okay, depending on the fitness of the people there. Okay. So what we actually managed to do was do Chamendong and Belumut, and by the time we came out, it was 14 hours. We walked nearly 21 kilometers. Okay. This was the group of people who set off. Okay, so in our case, we had Siva here, who had a huge tummy and a very, very heavy backpack laden with food and drinks. Then there was Sunbox's nephew here, okay, Eugene. He has not climbed much before, and eventually he badly sprained his ankle and he had to be led out by one guide. And these two people made us actually wait very, very long for them to catch up. And so we took very long breaks. If we had attempted to, the third peak, we would have finished at 11 p.m. instead of 6:30 p.m. Okay. So this is some of the things that we did. And I want to show you these pictures here because as I share, you will see the context. So, we had we really rested ground sheets and sleeping down there. This is Siva with his extra load, his stomach here, not to mention his heavy backpack. And this is the water filling point at Lake Tangga. Okay, now here you see I have a very badly bruised left hand. I submitted Gunung Chamendong in good time, in good form, feeling very strong. However, on my way down, I developed serious cramps in my knee area, lower quads, and my feet arches. Any sudden movement I make or forced exertion, which happens all the time because we have to cross logs and do funny climbs. Any sudden movement would initiate a cramp. And I was wondering, how am I going to summit Belumut, which is very, very steep at stretches, and the distance is over 6 kilometers just to the peak, and then later to come down. I applied a special heat gel. I took more electrolytes, and I prayed constantly. And miraculously I was able to summit. But here I show you this picture because I was having cramps so badly that when we were doing this crossing of a little stream here, I fell down and I hurt myself. These are some of the steep sections, so steep that you have to have an almost vertical ladder and ropes continuously and coming down like this. Okay. But as I say, miraculously, I was able to summit. In fact, I was the second fastest, slightly behind the team leader, Azlan, who is an ultra marathoner. He trains mountain climbers and he's 14 years younger. And I was able to descend safely. In fact, I was in the leading group, descending without any cramps. Now, I was away from, any more pictures? Okay, and then we finally finished, all of us except Eugene finished at 6:30 p.m. Okay. Now, I was away from business for, well, at a critical month end, okay? We went away on the 28th of the month. I came back on the 1st of June. So I was away at the critical month end, and I was away from family on a super holiday long weekend. Okay. And I was away for 5 days. So I wanted to do the evaluation and see whether the value I got was worth the cost. And so I want to look at the framework of my initial why. When I asked myself, why am I going on this? There were 3 things: CBR, the challenge, the bliss, and the risk. Okay. So let's just look at the value, evaluate each one. So challenge, I achieved exactly what I went for. Okay, not completion, but testing. I went there to test myself, see whether a 72-year-old can do this. So what did I test? I tested my body at age 71. Well, I'm 72 next month. Okay, I tested my cramp management under stress. I tested my mental resilience over 14 hours. I tested my ability to adapt when plans change. I tested my acceptance of different personalities and hiking styles. Okay. In leadership language, I was not collecting another summit, another peak. I was collecting actually data on myself. And the information I gained about my current capabilities and what I lack is worth far more than another routine month-end activity, doing the business with the family, which I do every month. Okay, so that's challenge. Now, bliss. I chose to use the word bliss because being outdoors in the jungle on an adventure is what I actually love doing. But because this hike is a tough one, it's very easy to focus on the suffering and be filled with dread. When Hui Son did Balumut the week before, days before, weeks before, she's worried about whether she can make it and all the pain that's involved. Okay. But the 14 hours was more like a pilgrimage for me, because there were these slow people who actually moved at a comfortable pace. Okay. There was no rain except for the last hour where it didn't matter, because if it was raining with those steep slopes, so slippery, it would have been very uncomfortable. We ate snacks throughout. I've never snacked so much before, but because it was such a long journey, everyone said you better fill yourself with energy. So I just enjoyed eating all kinds of sweet stuff. There was hot coffee brewed for us. We filled ourselves with stream water. It's just like, being a cowboy outdoor. We had ground sheets to rest on, and we took long rests, as I showed you in the picture. And of course, there was jungle immersion. It was in the jungle, place where I love, with the sound of the birds, the insects, and all that. And then there was this friendship, walking with people, with like-minded people, especially with people I've hiked before who took care of me, Sunbok and CK. Now, for someone who has spent 13 years mountain climbing, nature is not merely recreation. It's actually one of my places of renewal. And it's important as a leader to have renewal. So I ran this through ChatGPT just to ask it, did I waste my time? And so this is what ChatGPT pointed out. You often talk about leadership, learning, and staying open to the unknown. The jungle is where you practice that. Practice staying the unknown. Perhaps this is because I have practiced seeing the cup as half full. But, the fact that I can discover so many simple pleasures suggests that the trip fed something deeper than fitness, which was my initial intention, test my fitness. Perhaps it was also the visualization of bliss right before I left for the climb. I said my why is bliss. And because I visualized that, I attracted bliss. So that was challenge, bliss, and R is risk. I went because this long, tough hike is considered a difficult, hardcore trail, typically rated 7 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 on hiker difficulty scales. And thus it involves risk. What is the risk? The uncertainty of whether I can complete, and of course, injury from falling. Jackie was very worried that I would fall and really hurt myself. And this risk is perhaps the most valuable part, that the uncertainty actually revealed resources. I didn't discover resources while sitting comfortably at home. I discovered them because I was uncertain. So what did I find? I found faith. Okay, God answering prayer for the weather, but more importantly, prayer to enable me in my cramped state to actually complete. Okay. I found friendship, Sunbok and CK walking with me during the hike, and then also later, during R&R in Klong time, we spent so much time together. I found competent leadership. Aslan, with all his walkie-talkies and his parang and his equipment and the guides. I found equipment that worked. I found medicine that worked. I found experience accumulated over the years. For example, when I was in this cramped situation, in the past, what I've learned works is just to keep taking the next step and not quitting. Okay, when my legs were cramping, but I just don't quit, and somehow it worked out. So risk functions like a torchlight. Okay, risk often functions like a torchlight. It illuminates assets we didn't know we possessed. And so this is part of the discovery. And you know what's the interesting thing? The interesting part is that Rimau, the last peak, actually didn't matter. Okay, it didn't matter. Earlier in life, the success metric might have been complete all peaks. Okay, now the success metric seems to be have an adventure worthy of the effort. This is the journey part, and that's a profound shift. Okay, so I completed the real objectives, CBR. I challenged myself, I experienced bliss, and I took risks. And I guess the missing summit merely means that there's still a reason to return. There's unfinished business. Okay. So I just want to talk about acknowledging Aslan. So I acknowledged the leader and organizer Aslan through WhatsApp and in a Facebook post. One of the things I said was, you have a rare combination of responsibility with risk-taking and a rowdiness about you. I mean, a bit of a hiking. And ChatGPT remarked to me, when I shared this with it, it says, what strikes me most is not the traverse itself, it is the message you sent Aslan. That sounds remarkably similar to what you admire in leadership. Not recklessness, not safety alone, but the ability to create an environment where people can venture into the unknown and return richer for the experience. So in many ways, the Trans CBR was not really about Cemondong, Berlumut, or Rimau. It was a living example of one of your recurring leadership themes. And let me share my screen here. Wow moments happen when we step into uncertainty, supported by people we trust, and discover resources we didn't know we had. Okay. Wow moments happen when we step into uncertainty, supported by people we trust, and discover resources we didn't know we had. Now, since I did not complete Rimau, it actually subtly shifted the focus from conquering mountains to actually being transformed for them. And as I reflect on the topic of this Motivational Monday was being made whole in the mountains. I was made whole in the mountains. Okay? I was ministered to by 14 hours in creation, restored by nature, friendship, adventure, and God's presence. I was made aware. I discovered a weakness in my downhill leg strength and stability, and now I know what I need to do to improve that. Okay, I was made closer with deeper friendships forged through the challenge and this shared experience. I was made wiser. I learned about equipment. I learned about pacing, I learned about recovery, and as I shared earlier, I learned about the importance of having the right resources. I was made grateful for guides, grateful for friends, grateful for the good gear that I had, and grateful for answered prayers. And lastly, I was made content. Even without reaching the final summit, we just saw all the blessings of that trip. Now, what's the relevance of this to New Skin today? Okay, Jim Rohn said, your level of success will rarely exceed your level of personal development. Okay. We want to succeed in life. We want to succeed in New Skin. We want to succeed in the whole of life. Okay, as children, as parents, as friends, as people in the community. And in the recent Team Elite trip, Ryan Napierski talked about having a life of impact, and he used the analogy of climbing. Okay, interestingly, he used an analogy of climbing, and you know what? He talked about the second mountain, which is what my trip was about. It was not just one mountain, but a second mountain, and then a third mountain, and more mountains throughout life. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity for sharing to you how going out for a challenge, doing something that you love, and taking risks, has just enlarged my capacity as a person.